What is going on, Soccer Card Fiends? Hopefully you guys are having a wonderful day, and today we're here with a video on the USMNT roster breakdown going into the first World Cup qualifying camp. So excited to look into this. I'll of course, have a lens of the soccer card perspective on it, but overall just a fun roster to look at. So I'm going to go ahead and head on over there now and break it down. So going on over to the website, we can see the roster breakdown by position. So starting at the top, we have goalkeepers, Ethan Horvath, Zach Steffen, and Matt Turner. I don't think any of that is surprising for those that have been following for a good bit at this point. It seems like those are our three locked goalies on the roster. In terms of who's going to actually be our starter, that's kind of up in the air, a big question. Personally, in terms of goalkeepers for cards, I would just kind of stay away because, especially, goalkeepers are always not going to really have a premium because, it's very hard to have a very sentimental connection to a goalkeeper unless it's, of course, like, Tim Howard, and then it's very easy. But to get to that point is very hard. So to speculate on that is, again, very hard to do. So I would recommend just stay away, maybe dabble a little bit if you like a guy in particular, but for the most part, I wouldn't make any big plays in that regard, but I do like the options that we have there. Now moving into defenders, you can tell we have 10 of them, so there's going to be a lot here. I'd say with defenders, much the same. It's going to be hard for you to have memorable moments of defenders and really have their cards be elevated in price because of them being on a roster, performing well in a World Cup qualifier. So again, not as much potential here, but also again, if you do like people, no reason not to buy at the same time. First defender we got is George Bellow, fun inclusion coming off of the Gold Cup, performed pretty well. I think it's a good backup option for us there at left back. John Brooks, the nice trusty Brooks there in the center of defense. Then we have Serginho Dest as well. This is one that I am actually big on in terms of, I'm a buyer actively. Now, his cards did kind of get overprinted last year, so you got to be kind of very particular with what you're getting into, but I do like Dest a lot. Most people in the in the community do, so I'm not saying anything crazy there, but he's actually more of an attacker than he is a defender, so he has more potential in that regard. Mark McKenzie, nice backup. Again, might start. The thing is, with how many defenders we're bringing, Greg is essentially telling us that he's probably going to play 3 at the back, because if you were going to have 3 in midfield, why would you bring 5 midfielders? So kind of something you can take away from this. On top of that, Tim Ream, a lot of people are very upset with this in the USMNT community. People do not enjoy this. Understandably so, but at the same time, Greg has shown in the past that he does enjoy having just solid veteran figures on the team, and I think a lot of coaches do. So even if someone isn't good enough to really get starting minutes or to actually compete that much, there's still value in having them because you could swap them out for someone else, but that someone else probably won't even see the field too much. So in reality, you'd rather just have that presence and that guiding light. So I think that's what Tim Ream is. He's also a big Gio Reyna fan. Tim Ream and Gio have some weird connection. I think he's like his vet, essentially. So that's a lot of fun. Beyond that, Anthony Robinson, our starting left back at this point, less in stone than Serginho Dest. Serginho Dest is like a lock-in right back for us, but Anthony's been doing pretty well for Fulham and for country, so I think it makes a lot of sense. I don't think that was ever really in question. Miles Robinson coming in off the good Gold Cup, James Sands as well, and also having James Sands in here kind of shows maybe even more so that we're going to have 3 at the back because he's more of a distributing center back that could play in the middle for us. And then Yedlin and Walker Zimmerman. Nothing too crazy to say there. Yedlin, kind of iffy, but I guess I understand it. He's got good experience with the U.S., so I do get it in that regard. Onto the midfielders, this is where some people may scoff, but it is what it is at this point. Our midfield talent is just really young, and Yunus Musa is also injured, so it's hard to call in the 17, 18-year-olds for this World Cup qualifying cycle, especially when you've got Kellen Acosta, who's definitely proven himself with the USMNT the last summer, and Tyler Adams, a lock starter, Sebastian Lletget, a lock roster slot in Berhalter's mind. Not in most people's minds, but Berhalter he loves himself some Sebastian Lletget, so gotta put him in there. Weston McKennie as well, lock starter, and then Christian Roldan. That one is a bit more suspect. You could definitely question that with the likes of Luca De La Torre, or maybe you want to go with Julian Green, maybe you want to go younger and say that Caden Clark or, you know, one of these really young guys should be in there. That fifth midfielder slot is definitely a questionable selection, but I think we'll understand more about that as we look at the forwards. So with the forwards, we have 8 of them, only filling 3 positions. So again, kind of hefty on the forwards, and this is why I think we might have some more midfield depth here, because Brenden Aaronson can play in the midfield, and so can Gio Reyna. So while it says 8 forwards and 5 midfielders, it's really 8 forwards and 7 midfielders. Not too bad in that regard. So beyond that, though, Brenden Aaronson, I mean, kind of an obvious inclusion. He's been our backup left wing for a good bit at this point. Conrad De La Fuentes, a really fun one. I wasn't too sure if he would make it in here because while he has been in a camp before with us, he's only been in for a small amount of time, and what he did at Marseille has looked really good in his few appearances. But I mean, Greg's someone that, typically just holds his cards close to the vest, doesn't really try anything new. So to go out and bring in Conrad for this World Cup qualifying sequence is definitely enjoyable. Beyond that, Jordan Pfolk or Sabichu, if you know him as that, our backup striker, which would even seem to be more solidified at this point because we don't see a Daryl DK here, we don't see a Matthew Hoppe, and you could complain about that, but personally, I think it makes sense. I don't think that Hoppe has done anything insane for us or for club. I understand that he does have a good mentality, and I look forward to seeing how that ages with him, but at the moment I just don't think he's there. Ricardo Pepe actually getting called in, that's quite a fun one. From what I understand through FC Dallas, he did say that he is going to be with the USMNT. Now you can say whatever and you might do something else, but he's had a statement out that says he will go with the USMNT, and if we do cap him in these World Cup qualifiers, essentially, I think the rules are very weird. They do this all the time. They change everything. But from what I understand is if he does play with us during this World Cup qualifying sequence, he will be cap tied for 3 years. So it's not a full cap tie, but it is closer to that. Beyond that, we have Christian Pulisic for Chelsea. Of course, that is going to be a notable name. Gio Reyna for Dortmund as well. Kind of the 2 star boys of this team, I would say, with Pulisic and Reyna. A lot of fun to be had there. As I mentioned before, Gio Reyna could be playing as another midfielder for us, which would be a ton of fun going forward. I just think that he would unlock our wingers just an absurd amount. The passes you see him make for Dortmund and the options that he could have with like a Pulisic out on the left and maybe Weah on the right, or maybe Conrad on the right, or maybe Brendan. I mean, just whoever you want to throw over there on the right. The passes he would have with them would just be incredible and really unlock our team. And then finally, Josh Sargent as our starting striker and Tim Weah as maybe starting right wing, maybe backup right wing. Not really sure. It depends more so where Gio plays, but that's the overall 23, or I guess it's 26 that we have because of the bigger rosters for this go-around. First game is going to be next Thursday, and then we'll have 3 games in a 6-day span, so we are going to have roster rotation. So while I do hype up people like Gio Reyna and Pulisic and, Weston and Tyler Adams, you're going to see more of the other guys as well. So I've always talked about that during these World Cup qualifying cycles, if you're someone that was buying a few months ago, you should have been buying kind of the lesser known guys because they actually will get some shine here. But for the people that are now going to be watching these games and might want to buy in on the second or third string guy in hopes that, one day they supplant the top guy, and because they saw the games here and they think they're good, they're going to go in and buy some, I'd say you're probably not at the right point. If you have any kind of second string guys that you're looking to buy, I would say like a Brenden Aaronson fits into that, Ricardo Pepe fits into that. You also have Josh Sargent. I mean, he's a starter, but you could say he's kind of second rate compared to everyone. It's our starting striker role's up for grabs. Tim Weah, you could argue the same thing. And I mean, some of the defenders if you really want to, but essentially, I would buy them now if you're going to get into that type of game. If not, I would not buy them once they start scoring because it's silly. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, especially if they're only really going to be scoring during these World Cup qualifiers. And then once the World Cup cycle comes around, they're going to be just hanging out in the background more than likely. So you don't want to be a part of that. You don't want to get in too late. Looking on over at Twitter, though, here we have the Scuffed Pods starting lineup, essentially, and kind of the shape that we'll be taking. This is what I took away from the roster announcement as well, just with all the defenders. It was pretty obvious that we're going to go with a 3 at the back and 2 wing backs up there. So this is going to be a 3-5-2. looking at it, I mean, honestly, I think that this is our best lineup. I don't know how you get any better players onto the field. Sargent as our striker makes a lot of sense to me. He's kind of shown that, and I mean, Berhalter seems to think that as well since he starts him all the time. Pulisic and Weah, I love that combo just because I feel like they can stretch a defensive line very well, and with the passes you can get from Reyna or McKennie would just be amazing. Then you have Robinson and Dest on the right mid and left mid spots. More so a flex, just going up and down the field. But this does allow them to be more attacking and not have to worry as much about what's going on behind them, which has been a little bit of their weakness. And beyond that, as our three at the back, we have Brooks, Adams, and Miles Robinson. And so you can almost throw in anyone at that right center back, but I do think Miles Robinson will be the starter. And essentially, Tyler Adams being at sort of the center back role almost, it does seem a little weird, but in reality, whenever we were attacking with Tyler Adams in the lineup, typically he would drift back between John Brooks and whoever the right center back was to fill that gap. So while it looks strange, he actually does play that role quite a lot for us, and I really trust him in it because I think he's good at distributing and really just being quick with his feet in that position, which you have to be. So overall, I think the lineup looks amazing. I'm personally very excited for the breakout players that I could see actually, really making their stamp on this World Cup qualifier. Personally, I think Weah has always been kind of one that's just waiting to boom in that regard. I don't think Sargent will get the service, although I think he definitely could. I mean, people underrate Sargent and Weah a ton because if you're not scoring, people don't notice. If you're not a big name, people don't notice. But these are starters that are going to be in our front three, at least for the somewhat foreseeable future. So if that's the case, I mean, you're going to have to value them at some point the way that we should. And beyond that, I mean, it's not anything crazy, but I think Gio Reyna is a god, so I'm just going to point that out. Pulisic, I love him, I really do, but I just think that at this moment in time, from a soccer card perspective, everyone knows Pulisic. Like, that is a known name to every single person that is going to buy a U.S. men's national team soccer card. So if that's the case, I typically don't think that they're undervalued. And if they are, then that means a lot of other people behind are undervalued and probably even more extreme. So kind of the point of view I'm coming at with from there. And as always, Dest could be a lot of fun. I mean, whenever you give him less defensive responsibility, I can only imagine that that's going to be more flair, more excitement, just more goals to be had up there. So really excited to see how this plays out. Hopefully you guys are as well. So I had a lot of fun discussing this roster with you guys. If you guys have any thoughts on it, snubs or people that should be taken out of the lineup, let me know down below. Would love to hear overvalued and undervalued in terms of player card prices as well. Always fun to kind of see what other people are thinking and pinball some other ideas off my dome. But with that said, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to leave a like. Like I said, anything you want to tell me, would love to hear it down below in a comment. And if you want some more videos like this as soon as it goes live, make sure to subscribe. And with that said, hopefully have a wonderful day and peace.